My name is Teresa Ruth Howard, and I have a confession to make. I am a fat talker. That's right. I am obsessed with the fear of becoming fat, being fat. I count my calories. Well, not really, I don't count my calories. But I worry about my size, my shape, and my form. Almost to obsession. Clearly, why I have a blog, mybodymyimage.com. Blog. Okay, but seriously, I wanted to do an entry on fat talking because it is pervasive, and I think that it is the thing that helps perpetuate our body image issues, or the body image issues that we kind of carry through our lives. Just to clarify, what is fat talking? Fat talking is basically the conversation around being fat. Now, that could be about body image and body size, but it could also extend itself to when we talk about food and dieting and exercise. It's basically the conversation that we have around the body when it comes to being fat, or the fear of being fat. So you might be asking yourself, why is fat talking such a big deal? Why is it so important? What's the problem with it? Well, I mean, we think bad thoughts about a lot of things, and why is fat talking worse than something else? Well, I think it just goes into the idea that when you do not feel good about yourself, when you do not feel empowered and you do not feel positive about yourself, you project that energy out into the world. And so it's just like when you're like grumpy and you're having a bad day and you're snapping at everybody. Well, you throw that out into the world, you snap at them, they snap at somebody else, and yada, 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 yada. So that's part of it. It's the idea that if people felt better about themselves, if they thought better about themselves, then they would just be just inherently in a better mood. But more than that, when you feel good about yourself, when you feel like you like the person that you are, that you feel that you're good enough, then you are empowered to do more things in the world. You feel smarter. You feel capable. You feel like, yes, you should go out there and try that. You're more courageous. Yeah. So we have people, especially little girls, that are crippled under their self-image, that are unable to access all those other riches that they may possess, be it their intelligence, their personalities aren't able to flourish and blossom and go out into the world. Their social skills may be impaired because they don't feel good about themselves. They may never think that something is a possibility, like they could be a doctor, a lawyer, a dancer, or whatever. And so all of those things about the way that we feel about ourselves, um, and unfortunately, yes, a lot of times it does come from the physical, right? It comes from the outside in. The outside, the projection, the feedback you get from the world, is some of the first information that we use to form our sense of self, you know. Um, that's why it's so important, because sometimes the whole world is not going to say great things about you, but you don't have to join in. So what would happen if, you were saying really wonderful, empowering, building things about yourself? At least you'd have that person on your side. I mean, at the very least, you should be on your side. You should think you are beautiful and the best thing ever. And that doesn't mean that you are disillusioned. It just means that, you think you're the bomb.com, and you should. Even when you're not, there's something to that. Even when you aren't the bomb, you should be like, well, I'm still the bomb. I mean, and you tap yourself on the shoulder and be like, well, not really, not today so much. But you know that you have the potential to be the bomb.com. Does that make sense? Um, Not, to get all Tamar Braxton on you, but I guess I just did. For the past few months, I sort of did an experiment with myself, and I took stock of when I was fat talking, either about myself or when I was projecting my unhappiness with myself, or my standard or my ideal, my beliefs on other people. And it's really sort of frightening how often I am engrossed in the conversation about the body. Now, I have to kind of take it in two parts. One is I am a dancer, I teach dance, I deal with the body all day long. I am incredibly hypersensitive to the body and its form. I am less a fattist in a way than I am a proportionalist. Okay, that's a whole nother topic. But I'm obsessed with people's proportions um, and shapes and forms that way. And so the way that I see the world is really in a very physical way. And I think that that's basically due to my background. So I'm sort of like, it's loaded for me anyway. Like I can't get away from the body because it's my body. The body is my business. Um, but even though the body is my business, the conversation I have surrounding the body is a whole different story. So I do have an ongoing sort of recording about my personal body and where I am. I'm hypersensitive to my shape and form and size. And coupled with the fact that, throughout my whole life since I was 3 years old, I've been dancing, there's also this added dimension now that I am aging. Okay, we're all aging, but I'm going into the zone, people. And so your body goes through all these different changes every decade. So I am hyper aware that certain things don't function is one thing. Certain things just don't do what they used to do in terms of dance. Some things don't look the way they used to look. Some things don't snap back the way they used to snap back. And so there's an added layer to my conversation and my observations about my own body. The other interesting thing that I discovered was that I am hypersensitive about bodies just in general, in a comparative nature. So okay, so the personal obsession would be if I look across at somebody else, another woman, say, and she's around my height, and if I like her size, I have to compare to see, like, because I have like a warped sense of self. So I go like, am I the same size of her as her, or am I smaller or bigger? And I do that because I know I have this warped sense of self. I'm letting all the crazy out right now. But I know I have a warped sense of self. So in order for me to stay sort of even keel, if I can look at a person's body, a person's form and say, oh, I think that she looks great. And I say, oh, I'm about the same size as her, then I can kind of like calm myself down. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a little twisted. And I would love to know if anybody else plays these sorts of games or whether I'm just out here and I need medication. But I notice that I do that a lot. I notice that I do look at different body shapes and ages and shape. I'm very sensitive to it. Now, I don't know if it's because of this work that I do with the body and body image and the blog, or whether it's just sort of that fat conversation. I actually tend to be a lot more compassionate towards other people who are larger than myself. I say this because I'm extraordinarily hard on myself about being a certain size. And if I get larger than that, then I'm like, oh no, this can't happen. However, when I see people who are larger than me, and proportionally they look good, I don't have a problem with that. Very, very funny. So I think that there's an element of compassion and empathy that I need to look at with myself, more so than even with others. So while I'm on the confessional tip, I will say that this was a post that I was supposed to do months ago. And I was going through my drafts on the blog and I saw this and I was like, oh, I have to get back to this. Ironically, since that time, and I guess it was probably about 4 or 5 months ago, I feel like my fat talking has lessened. Um, and I think it's lessened because I was just so extraordinarily busy. Like I would notice things about my body, like, the wax and wane of winter and spring came and went, and I was kind of accepting of it. I was kind of like, okay, yeah, that's there. That's going to have to stay there until I can do something about it. It's kind of like those pants that sit in the middle of the floor. You're like, I know I should pick them up, but I'm going to walk over them one more time. And then on my way back from the bathroom, I'll pick them up. It's sort of like that. And so I kind of like relaxed on it because I had other things on my plate, and it's like you can't do everything, so you can't obsess over that. Something else needed to be obsessed on over. So maybe that's something that we should look at. Is like maybe we have too much time to focus on our bodies and obsess over things. Maybe we need to find other things to put our attention and our effort and our energy towards. And so that it can level off and we can place this conversation about the body and fatness, um, place it where it should be. And it should only take up a certain portion of our lives. It should not be an obsessive conversation. So I don't know if there's a resolve to this. I don't know that I have any, great wisdom to impart when it comes to fat talking, except for that I think that we should observe it, and we should maybe try to, when we see ourselves sort of fat talking, or we find ourselves fat talking, I think that we should kind of do a cancel and realize that it is there, but we have to find a way of quelling it. And to that note, in terms of like, what is the answer to stopping fat talking? I mean, we know that it's not the greatest practice, that we know we shouldn't do it. But how can we change it? I mean, I know that there's a lot of my mental time and space is at times devoted to, preoccupation with my body, or the way that I look. But an interesting thing, Deepak Chopra has this saying, or this philosophy, that it takes 30 days to break a bad habit. So if you want to stop a habit, if you can stop doing it for at least 30 days, then you can break the habit altogether. But the key thing is that, when you're trying to break a habit, say for instance smoking, you have to fill that void with something else. You can't just like say, I'm not going to do this, and not replace it with something. You have to replace the action with another action that kind of takes its place, fills the void, and it becomes the new behavior. So I guess we need to think of a new behavior that would take the place of fat talking. And I think I'm going to try for like, let's say 30 days. I'm going to try to, every time I find myself fat talking or fat obsessing, I'm going to replace it with a positive body thought. I don't know quite what that means yet, and maybe I'll check back in with you and give you a list of some of my positive body thoughts, because I hate, like, I'm not an affirmation girl, and I'm not like, oh, I love myself. I'm not in for that sort of thing. I'm a very realistic, down to earth type of chick. So it would have to be something that's real and very grounded. I don't know what that is yet, but when I find out, I'll come back and I'll tell you. And then I'll tell you how it went. So I just want to say, as a fat talker, you are not alone. I am here with you. But I'm going to try to do better. All right. So this is Teresa Ruth Howard for MyBodyMyImage.com. And that's all I have for you today.